So, in this segment, we're going to be talking about the government's half baked measures when it comes to the mandatory quarantines. And I know there's going to be people saying, oh, we can't quarantine everyone because there's so many people coming into the UK. That is an issue. We need to look at why so many people are coming in, especially during a quarantine, a pandemic. But yeah, there are massive issues with the government's quarantine plans. So we know from February 15th this is going to happen. Anyone travelling to the UK from the UK's travel ban list will be required to quarantine for the government in a government approved facility for 10 days, going against World Health Organization's recommendation of 14 days. Also the CDC kind of recommend 14 days as well, but we're Great Britain, we know better. But also the French are doing a week, so maybe other countries need to stop being dumb. So if we look at this right next week, so by next Monday, the mandatory quarantine thing is going to come into play, right? And so what the government have said on their official website, this is the government's official website, is discussions with transport and hospitality industry are already underway and commercial specification issued to hotels. So you have just told this article is from 3 days ago, okay? You're giving hotels and transport 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks to prepare for all of these influx of people, considering that these hotels wouldn't have had a lot of people because we're in a pandemic and a quarantine. So you expect these hotels to have taken this less than 2 weeks, and transport, which is the more difficult bit, to prepare in less than 2 weeks, right? When it's taken you almost a year to figure this stuff out. So how do you expect these organizations, these companies, to figure things out within the space of less than 2 weeks, especially when we find out that a lot of hotels haven't actually been talked to? The government is under growing pressure. So this is from 3 days ago. The government under growing pressure to announce details of quarantine plans after hotels revealed no discussions had taken place. So what we can gather from this is that the hotels haven't even been told if they're going to be used and how much space they would need to give up for these mandatory quarantines. Like what are you guys doing? It's taken you guys almost a year to figure this stuff out, and you haven't even bothered. Like, this is beyond half baked. This is raw. Like, the ingredients are still in the packaging. That's how bad this is going. We've got Yvette Cooper here, for heaven's sake. Who is in charge of the borders policy? When will we get details? Does anyone have a grip? She tweeted that on the 3rd of February, and even then we still don't have the full scope of what the hell is going on. We've got this fairly long interview from the BBC. It's Charlie State, I think that's his name. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but this is masterful interviewing. This is Emily Matlas levels of interviewing and getting this guy to open up. And then,
where is the next mutant coronavirus strain coming from?
Oh, well, look, I have no way of knowing. What I do
Okay,
know,
so let me pick up on that point, because this is a very important point. With respect, the question, yes, if I may, let me just follow the question up, and you have time to answer. The reason I asked that question that way is that you don't know where the next strain is going to come from. That's an obvious thing. So
we're going to be waiting for Japan to tell us, because they're the only ones who actually seem to be knowing about this stuff and doing airport testing to find out if there are new strains and where it's coming from. That's one of the only reasons why we didn't get hit with that really bad strain that hit Brazil. So thank you, Japan, once again.
So the obvious conclusion of that is that you close the borders to all countries because you don't know where the strain is coming from.
So look, you're trying to tee up a nice little clippable radio moment, but you cut off my answer. And if you'd let
This is TV, you donut.
if you'd let me answer in full, you'd understand why our policy is very effective. The UK has one of the global leading genomic research programs. And actually, because of that, we have a unique offer to the world, which is helping scientists around the world identify quickly new strains.
See, Japan do that in the correct way, which is airport testing and mass testing. We're going to do this in the stupid way, and we're going to see his stupid answer on his stupid face with his stupid Union Jack flag, because he's a patriot. He really cares about this country. He does not care. He does not care about the public of this country, and we're going to see that firsthand.
So that we know where new variations of coronavirus are developing in the world more quickly than we have done up until now. That will help us adapt, and I think the point you were going to make, that will help us to adapt our list of high-risk countries much more quickly and much more responsibly than we have done in the past. rather than where I think you are going with the next question, which is putting a blanket quarantine ban on every country in the world, which would put significant additional and unnecessary pressure, because forcing high risk restrictions on countries that don't have a high risk would be I think an excessive move to take.
The logic. So
Why is it excessive? Other countries have done this. Other countries, there's a mandatory quarantine to get into the country. Countries like Australia and New Zealand, you're not putting excessive pressure on anyone. Like, this is such a stupid take from James Cleverly.
the logic of your answer, if I'm following it correctly, is that we're good at finding the virus strains after they've got here. So that's the good bit of this equation, is it?
No,
a lot of people will see it the other way round, which is the foot first approach would be you try and stop them from coming in before.
He's got him. He's got him there, bang to rights, because absolutely that is what he's saying, is we're really good. We have top genomes and scientists and blah, blah, blah. We're really good at identifying new strains, but only when they've actually come into the country, because that's when we know we have a new strain. Look at the South Africa variant. So this is just absolutely so stupid from James Cleverly. Like, the fact that he has his name, is that surname, is such an irony. But it's just, this is the government's policy right now, which is, we're going to let the virus in, and new variants come in, new variants are going to stay here, and who cares? We're going to identify them, and then we can tell other countries, oh look mate, you've got a new variant, watch out mate. And we can tell the other countries that don't let these guys in your country because they've got a new variant. Like, they're using the British public as guinea pigs. And to top it off, we just found out recently that the South Africa variant has some it's not as affected by the AstraZeneca vaccine. The AstraZeneca vaccine, which is the one that's given out en masse to people. Also, going beyond that, South Africa have also stopped using the AstraZeneca vaccine on over 65s. Because of this reason, and because of the theory that it's not that particular vaccine is not as good on the over 65s as people want it to be, as it needs to be. So James Cleverly here being an absolute idiot once again, because he's simply saying that we need to let the new variants in so then we can do studies on them and stuff like that. He's using the British public as guinea pigs, which is just embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. And this whole half-baked quarantine thing, they've had almost a year to prepare for this, to follow this strategy, as other countries have successfully. So we go, we keep going. Mandatory quarantine, mandatory hotel quarantines for UK nationals. This is from the 28th of January. Ministers defend UK hotel quarantine plan. No contracts have yet been awarded to hotels to take part of the new quarantine scheme, number 10 has said. So 2 days ago, there were no contracts given to hotels for these quarantine schemes. So what does that mean? You're giving these hotels less than a week to prepare for this, and to say that we want to use your hotel, and this is how much we're going to pay you. And what you're doing is giving these hotels more leverage, because they can say that, it's too short notice, or we want more money because there's not enough time to prepare the hotels. That's what you have done here. This is how stupid this government are. So I'll keep going. Sorry. These are the list of travel bans. So you got Angola, Argentina, Bolivia, Botswana, Brazil, Burundi, Cape Verde, Chile, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ecuador. I'm not sure how to pronounce that one. I think that's French Guinea, Ghanaian, Lesser. You're going to see my ignorance here by not being able to pronounce half of these. Malawi, Mauritius. I should know that one. Mozambique, Namibia, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Portugal, Rwanda, no idea. South Africa, no idea. Tanzania, UAE, Uruguay, Venezuela, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So these are the countries currently on the red list. But the thing is, an issue is that you can go from one of these countries into another country via transit and still get into the UK, because apparently all you have to do is tick a box to say that you were in one of these countries. So to get around this and the cost of mandatory quarantining, you could just tick a box, because there's no way for the UK to know where you're coming from for some reason. So yeah, big up the UK government once again. absolute geniuses there, or genius eye, however you want to say it. And we go to David Schneider, who says, in today's we've done everything we can. Known UK cases of South Africa variant 147 and rising. Government conclusion, wait another week before bringing in quarantine and exclude 35 countries with variants, including the South African one. So basically, even if you're in a country with the South Africa variant, you can still come to the UK without going to the mandatory quarantine facilities. You know, they'll say just go quarantine at home or something. Like, how are you going to get home? I don't know. We also don't know how they're going to actually get to the hotel, so that's another issue. You know, and this cartoon here is pure genius. I think it's by someone called Danny, I'm not sure. But arrivals UK passport red list, cough cough. Nasty cough, sir. Lucky you got here well before the quarantine. This is painful. You know, hotel quarantine for UK arrivals to be discussed. This is the 22nd of January. They thought about this. I think it goes previous to that as well. You know, these are, you know, Australia's 5-star hotels and stuff. If you want to watch that video, feel free to do it. But you know, they were discussing this in January, the end of January. Like, why is it taking you this long to come to this conclusion? I don't understand why this has happened now, considering they've had almost a year to prepare for this. And the two most successful countries that I've seen, anyways, or at least two of the most successful countries, New Zealand and Australia, have implemented this strategy. So you can talk to the airports, you can split out the amount of people coming to different airports, right, by communicating with them and saying, look, there's too many people going to Heathrow, we want you to move to another airport like Stansted in order so we can use the hotels in that area for mandatory quarantines. But instead, it's just being, it just pains me. This is like, I'm becoming the Jackie Chan confused and angry meme, because this is all I feel now. Honestly, you know, New Zealand, you know, reports the first case in community in months. So New Zealand, someone managed to somehow slip through the nets of testing and all that stuff, because this person tested negative twice, I believe. So she completed the 2-week mandatory quarantine, but somehow she still had coronavirus because New Zealand locked down on it so quickly. You know, they dealt with the case really quickly. It didn't spread into the wider public because they still do testing and they still check on people. In this case they were lucky because the lady showed symptoms, the one that managed to kind of slip through the testing. Not her fault, it's just one of those things that can happen. But what we can gather from this is New Zealand, this is their first case in months, first community case in months. We've been having community cases at the wazoo every day, and you know, this is what success looks like, where you have one case of it in a few months. Even other countries have dealt with it way better. Vietnam, Japan, South Korea. You know, they did this. It was not impossible to get this right. You know, managed isolation in New Zealand. So this is them getting to it. You know, they announced this since the 20th of March by the looks of things. So it says here that at the daily 1 p.m. press conference on the 9th of April 2020, Ardern, that's the Prime Minister of New Zealand, announced that those boarding flights after midnight that day would have to go, so this is after midnight on that day, would have to go into managed quarantine by the government. She explained the government has been considering the measure for some time, but there was simply not the capacity to introduce these measures any earlier, as almost 40,000 New Zealanders had returned since the 20th of March, a number larger than all of the country's hotels. Part of the announcement was that the government would use up to 18 hotels, but this was soon increased to 26 by early June and 32 by early August. So they phased this in and managed to deal with it properly. The UK can do this, but we're choosing not to do this. We've chose to do this late because we are led by idiots. You know, this is, you know, would travellers, you know, would-be travellers have to prove journeys essential. These are people going out of the UK, not people coming in. So why are you doing this for people leaving and people not coming back? I don't understand. Surely if you're not a British citizen, your journey has to be important to come into the country, because unless you are mistaken, we are in a goddamn pandemic. So it is to start on the 15th of February. I had this article loaded. So yeah, go away Windows. And you know, we keep going. The ministers defend the plan, super slow. Labour criticised them for being slow. You know, We go to the 10-day mandatory quarantine thing, which is just stupid, because the World Health Organization say, the 14 days is based on what we know as the incubation period, which is the time from exposure it takes to develop symptoms. For most people, the average time is between 5 and 6 days, but the upper bound of that is 14 days. So realistically, we should be doing 14 days quarantine, especially for travelers, because if they have any of these new variants, they could easily get out into the wild, and then boom, we have another wave of COVID cases because the government didn't deal with the new variants. Absolute morons, a lot of them. The CDC, the American Center for Disease Controls, continues to endorse a 14-day quarantine and recognizes that any quarantine shorter than 14 days balances reduced burden against a small possibility of spreading the virus. So the CDC are saying, we want you to do a 14-day quarantine, but obviously the way America is so decentralized that it's not always possible to do this. But at the same time, at least they're acknowledging that a 14-day quarantine is important and it's the way to go, despite other countries saying, nah bro, we'll do like 7. I think that's France and Japan. The UK are like 10. Bruv, just do 14. So we go on to our final article, which is Minister defends hotel quarantine delay, saying we needed time to prepare. Like, bro, you still haven't given the contracts out to hotels by the looks of things. You still haven't sorted out transport. What are you doing? What are you doing, fam? Like, you can stick your flag in the corner for as long as you want. That flag is not going to help you be better at your job. What's going to help you be better at your job is listen to experts and proper planning. You could do neither of those because you're a tool. James Cleverly, Boris Johnson, the whole lot of you. All of you are clowns. Like, I do not know how much I have to stress this. The lot of you are clowns. Starmer, start getting on them, or you're going to join the clown gang. This interview here highlights how stupid some of these Conservative Party politicians are, and it really stresses me out because they could deal with this far better. But they choose to be stupid, they choose to be ignorant, they choose to leave things at the last minute, and that's the problem right there. These are not details people. I'm bad at planning things, that's why I don't plan things. But these governments here, you put yourself in charge. The moment you put yourself in charge of anything, that's the moment you're in the firing line. That's the moment you put your head above the parapet and you say, I'm going to take charge. And that is why they deserve every criticism that they get from this channel, from people on the left, people on the media, in the media, because the media are doing a crap job. That's why I'm here trying to tell you guys what the hell is going on, because other people will not tell you. And James Cleverly, you're an absolute moron. Shouts out to Charlie State for this interview. Long may he continue doing good interviews like this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Also, I am on Discord. We'll leave the link to a Discord server in the description. If you want to come and talk about politics or whatever you want to talk about, join the Discord. And hopefully I'll see you next week.